So good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for everybody who's gonna take their time to watch this. It is always a pleasure to host you guys, and I'm super honored. So today I'm here with two beautiful ladies. They're going to say who they are and what they do before we really go to our main discussion. So we start with Dr. Kerubo.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning as we talk about a very important topic. My name is Dr. Lilian Kerubo. I am a behavior pediatrician and I work in both public and private facilities. And I also run my clinic that is called DIF-ABA Clinic that focuses on behavior modification for children.
Oh, that's nice. And Rachel?
Hi everyone, my name is Rechael Mbugwa. I'm a counseling psychologist, a mother, and a wife, and I'm happy to be here. Welcome, let's learn together.
Yeah. So thank you so much, ladies. So today we are going to discuss on the reintroduction of corporal punishment in our schools. And what we really want to understand, is it really a good idea? And if not, what should have been done? And if yes, how can we do it better? So just to take you back from where it all started, in 2001, that's when corporal punishment was actually stopped in Kenya. And this was because there was a conference, a World Conference on Education for All, and I'd quote what was said in that conference, which happened in 2000 in Pakistan. It was said that Kenya was cited as having institutionalized violence and promoted child abuse by including corporal punishment in its statuses. And based on this statement, the then CS Education, who was Mr. Kalonzo Musyoka, came and said, okay, so we are no longer going to punish our children as far as caning is concerned. And because what was shown is that caning brought lots of serious death, serious injury, and sometimes death. And usually, I think when caning happens, there's a way that it's supposed to be. But what was shown is that most teachers actually do not follow how this is how caning should actually be done based on specific age and what the mistake. So what we just want to first understand, what is corporal punishment? I'll start with you, Rachel. What is corporal punishment?
Thank you, Neema. Corporal punishment is anything that inflicts pain on a child as a form of punishment. So that means if they have done something wrong and you want to bring bring punishment, but now corporal punishment involves physical punishment or physical. That could be caning, spanking, slapping, pinching, twisting, hitting with an object, and most of the school use the stick. So that is what we could call a corporal punishment.
And what are the limits? Because just based on what you've just said, it means like you can even throw a stone and it will be considered as a form of corporal punishment. So what are the limits, especially when it comes to our schooling?
Yes, corporal punishment comes with limits. And one would say is the age. Age, depending with the child that you're looking at, you cannot use a hefty caning to a very young. So the age is also a limit. 2, time. If a child make a mistake in January, you cannot call them in December and tell them, you remember January 2021, this is what you did. So it also has a limit of time, and it also have a limit of consistency. So if you want to change this behavior using corporal punishment, you administer it immediately. So there is a limit of time, the limit of age. You look at age appropriate when you're using the technique, either is a beating or spanking, limit of age, but also you maintain a consistency. Else, it will appear as if every time you're angry, that's when you beat the child. But when you now become consistent that whenever they do a given mistake, then that's when you administer it. Consistency helps the child be able to relate the behavior and the consequences.
Okay. So Dr. Kerubo, the issue of time limit and age, what is the reasoning behind that?
Yes, thank you for that question, and thank you, Rachel, for introducing us to what corporal punishment is. So, in the mind of a child, and I say this I mean somebody who is below 7 years old, in the mind of a child, they're not able to do what we call abstract thinking. The abstract thinking has not been very well developed. So they're able to process at most, to relate at least two things. So in the mind of a child, if they steal a pencil and then they are beaten for it, so they immediately associate the theft of the pencil with the pain that they got from the beating from the parent. So that's why the age limit is important, knowing who you can beat or who you can spank and who you cannot spank. Once a child is above the age of 7, abstract thinking has started setting in. So they may not directly relate the beating to the behavior. They may think maybe you hate them, maybe you have bad thoughts or bad feelings about them. Maybe you're just out to hurt them, especially if there are other confounding factors, like if it's a stepmom and child situation, if it's a teacher and child situation, if it's a stranger outside just beating them. They may not directly relate and say, I'm being beaten because I did this. They may conclude other thoughts. And once they conclude other thoughts because they're able to do abstract thinking, then that becomes a challenge. The issue of time, why you should correct at the time of the incident, is number one, so that they're able to directly relate the action with the consequence at that time. If you postpone it, or if you forget and then you come back later, or if you this time you punish, the next time you don't, it messes up their brains. They are not able to reason and say, I'm being punished because of this. So it has to be immediate, and it has to be in a setting that is appropriate. Okay, if you're going to beat your child, don't beat your child in front of other people, because that brings the element of shame in it, and we don't want to shame the children. If you're going to beat your child, don't beat them while hurling insults at them. Some of us, when you share experiences with our age mates, when they were being beaten, they would be beaten and being called Gasia wewe, Jinga wewe, Toto ya nani, so you relate not just the action with the punishment, you also start to have some kind of self-hatred, some kind of self-embarrassment, because it's not just that you were beaten, but you were called very abusive names. There's also where to hit. You don't just hit anywhere, okay? You have to have specific designated areas for hitting. You don't just beat somebody on the head, you don't beat somebody in the eyes, you don't beat them in the mouth. There are specific areas that you will research and see which ones are safe to beat. You have to have a time limit of how long to beat. My dad used to have specific strokes. So like he would say, for this 3 strokes, for that 5 strokes. Otherwise the anger can overcome you, and you can end up doing more damage than good. So you have to have limits for yourself. If it's a family, the 2 parents can keep each other in check. So as the other parent is disciplining, the other parent is keeping a watchful eye, so that should the anger become too much, they can raise an alarm and say, okay, I think that's maybe we are going too much. You have to also decide after the beating. The beating in itself doesn't end the behavior. After the beating, there should be some talking. There should be some reconciliation, especially after the child has calmed down and now they're softer. There should be some time where you sit and say, this is why I beat you. We had already, and you have to have already set a standard, so that they know this is the standard. I have made this mistake. The consequence is this. So don't just out of the blue beat somebody. It has to be a standard has been set, and now that standard has been broken, and now we are putting in the consequence. And as I said, it only works for children below 7 years old. It should not be administered for children who are above 7 years old, especially high school students. And we're going to talk about that because as the conversation goes on.
Okay, so thank you so much. I think you've mentioned a number of very important things. Now to Rachel, when it comes, one of the things that Dr. Kerubu has said is the other parent should keep an eye on how like if it's the father, then the mom should be able to keep an eye on how he or she is punishing the child. What is your take when it comes to now the mom telling the dad while he's punishing, "Achana na mtoto," like like the mom correcting the dad there and then while the punishment is going on? And how should it happen so that at the end of the day, we also have a cohesive family?
As Dr. Lillian have stated, corporal punishment has a limit in terms of someone else is helping you gauge, am I exploring my anger, or actually am I punishing the action that have been done? The essence of having the other parent watch over you is to help you that you don't go to the extremes. But because we come from different background, like the wife will have a different discipline method and the husband has a different discipline method, it is important for parents to sit down and agree what are the techniques or discipline method are we going to apply. Because if we come from a school of thought that my way of disciplining is okay, but the other partner's way of disciplining you have some issues with it, it will always arise, especially when you're now caning the child or disciplining your child. Does it have effect? Yes. As Dr. Kerubo have just said, that children at that age, they are trying to differentiate. Is it an issue of the action? Is it an issue of my mother does not love me? Now, if that the child is in that confusion and the mother comes in and actually confirms that whatever the dad is administering, it's not in the right way. Now, it feels like now the mother have taken the side of the child and now the father becomes the abuser. So you move from discipline to abuse. So the child does not get that you're being punished for the action you've done. The child is able to tell or picks the idea of, my mother loves me and that's why she's defending me, but my father does not love me. And that's why you find the difference between where a child feels, I love my mother more than my dad. But it's because every time I'm being punished, my mother comes to my rescue. And in punishment, you're trying to change a behavior. You're not trying to or you're not trying to damage the child. You're trying to change the behavior. Unfortunately, the behavior that is cultivated during that scenario where the mother takes sides of the other or does not approve of the method of punishment, whatever behavior is accomplished in the child's life is the behavior of my mother favors me or my father favors me, while my mother or my father in that essence want to punish me or want to destroy me. It brings division between the family. What can they do? Request the two parents to sit down and agree what is the parenting mode are they going to use. And in terms of punishment or administering when children have done something wrong, what technique are they going to use? When they agree on that, then becomes easy, even for them.
Okay, thank you so much. So there was a study that was done in Kiambu amongst the Kiambu schools, and these were both primary and secondary school, but they were all public schools. And they were really trying to understand the effect of the effect of corporal punishment. Like how did the kids now change from the time that the corporal punishment was stopped to that time. This study was done in 2005, and we said the corporal punishment was stopped in 2001. Now the issues that the teachers rose were the students are becoming disobedient, and the teachers thought the disobedient was actually coming from the lack of corporal punishment. Is that true, first of all?
Who is the question?
Yeah. Okay, we start with Dr. Kerubo.
Okay, thank you.
You stop the corporal punishment in school. Can that have the power to increase disobedience in schools?
Okay. One of the things people like to say is, we were beaten and us we were good, or my parents were beaten and they are good. So if you take an example of us, the generation who are now 30 years old and 40 years old, we are the ones who were beaten. We were beaten, if we can say that. If I talk to all my colleagues, they all say, beating was our daily diet, for whatever reason and at whatever time and to whatever magnitude. So I can say we are the generation that was beaten. And so people say we were beaten and we are okay. But I usually ask, are we truly okay? If you look at the people who are now, when the beating has been withdrawn, because now we are adults, the beating is no longer there. No one is beating us right now. who are the ones committing the biggest corruption scandals in this country? Are they the children who we like to say are spoiled because we are not beating? Who are the ones, if you look at a sample of our political leaders just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, physically fighting in a funeral? Are they not the ones who were beaten to the extent of having scars and saying, this one was for when I was stealing chicken, this other one was for when I was talking to a girl? They can even show you the scars they have from their parents. But they're the ones fighting in a funeral. They're the ones committing corruption scandals. They're the ones asking for bribes. If in the health sector, we are the ones, charging exorbitant fees to patients unnecessarily because we want to steal from them. So really, we are not okay. Divorce rates, because we are the ones having divorces. Divorce rates are out of the roof right now. 50% of marriages end in divorce in Kenya. And we are the ones doing those divorces, not the generation we like to condemn. And we are the ones who are beaten. We can't have a stable relationship. We don't speak up when there's social injustice. We are muzzled. Most of the time when people say children have become disobedient because they are not being beaten, what they're trying to say is children are not being submissive or subjugating. One of the things beating or corporal punishment does very well is to muzzle the subject, to make this person less of a human, to remove the rights of this person, and to make this person feel like they're worth nothing. That's what most people want. That's what most people want in children. They want a child who you say, go, they go. Jump, how high. Eat, I eat. Right, that's what most people want. Nobody wants a child who can say, okay, teacher, I heard you. However, can we try this other way? Or, sometimes the secondary school students may raise an issue of maybe they want entertainment, or they want to have a day off at the end of the week. And then if this is met with, resistance by the administration, they will say, okay, let's burn the school down. Because maybe they tried an avenue of raising it. And because we don't want children who have their own minds, we don't want children who can oppose us. We don't want children who can ask questions. We don't want children who can show us how wrong we are, because we are wrong sometimes. We say they have become disobedience. What is disobedience? Is disobedience, refusal? Is disobedience having a contrary opinion? Is disobedience not being kept, constrained under our very strict and very demoralizing rules that we have created for ourselves? What exactly, that's what I would ask that the teachers who gave that opinion. What do you mean by disobedience? Is it something, a rule you had set and they broke it? Or is it because they're talking back? Is it because they have alternative thoughts and alternative opinions?
Rechael?
Any behavioral change or any behavior change that results from a punishment is temporal. Meaning, if you were beaten because you took sugar, or you spilled milk, or you failed to do the assignment, once the punishment is removed, you will still continue doing it. So does corporal punishment work? I would say temporarily, until the person being punished gain power. Once they gain power, look at the people that are sent to jail. Do we still have people that are sent to jail for punishment for their crime, but when they come out, they still do crime?
Yeah, it's true.
So corporal punishment works, but works temporarily. How temporal do you want it to work?
Yeah, that's very true. And looking at what Dr. Kerubo and Rechael have just said, Sweden was actually the first country to stop corporal punishment in the world in the 1960s. You can imagine. And looking at where Sweden is and where Kenya is in 2001, and now we have reintroduced it, it can clearly give you the picture of what corporal punishment does to generations to come. And the effects have not only been on, like what I say, the aggressiveness, the fighting, and the bullying, and now corruption, and then now just the sense of entitled, because you're like, now I'm the boss, so I can walk on people's head without feeling anything, just because that's exactly what happened to me when I was young. So what should we do? Because you see, there are usually two schools of thoughts. The first one usually comes from the Christianity perception. I'm sure you've heard of the phrase, spare the rod, spoil the child. So how can we spare the rod? Maybe we can start from there. Can we actually spare the rod without spoiling the child? Dr. Kerubo and then Dr. Rechael.
Okay, I'm familiar with that Bible verse. It's actually Proverbs 15:24 that says, spare the rod and spoil the child. And there are many other verses that you can say that support, beating, that, use the cane to remove the foolishness from the child. Exactly. The cane will save them from, is it damnation or hell? That is actually true. However, if you look at the Hebrew version of the Bible, when it says spare the rod and spoil the child, the word child in Hebrew is nominos. And if you directly translate what nominos mean, these are children who are actually very small. So corporal punishment can work, but up to a certain age. So I don't usually say ban it altogether. It can be used, but up to a certain age. And of course, with the restrictions that we've said, time must be considered, the limit of the punishment must be considered, talking must be considered, a standard must be set before. Also give room for forgiveness. It's not all the time that a child messes up that you must punish. We as adults, we make mistakes all the time. How many times do you make a mistake at work and your boss calls you and says, okay, this was a mistake, but we forgive you, try better next time. But we don't want to extend that grace to our children. We want all the time because that's the only way we know how to, punish them. So I would say corporal punishment can work if done with love and up to a certain age. Beyond that, children who are in high school, it's no longer time to punish them, to beat them. These are children, first of all, who can even be stronger than you. The other day you saw a high school child who killed a teacher. So you try beating a boy who is 18 years with muscles from here up to God knows where, and you have that small cane. Me in my small body, I'm coming to beat you. No, you will beat me. So it doesn't work for big kids, and big kids who can reason, who can actually call you out and tell you, no, teacher, you're actually wrong. You are the one who is wrong. So it doesn't work beyond a certain age. Beyond a certain age, I would suggest we find other alternative ways of modifying behavior. Remember, behavior is a set of actions that have impact on the person and the society at large. So we can have behavior that is acceptable to the particular society or behavior that is unacceptable. And behavior is specific to the society that this person is in. For example, if you go to the arid and semi-arid parts of Kenya, it's normal behavior to walk semi-naked and no one is going to question you. But you do that in Nairobi, you get in trouble. So you have to define as a family or as a school or as a club, what are our behavior norms? Once you have established what your behavior norms are, explain them to these children. And remember, these are children who are almost adults. So they will ask you why. I remember when I was a teenager, I used to ask my mom why all the time. And she used to get so angry because she would tell me, don't come home after some time. And I would ask why. She would take it as an affront or as a way of journey. I was trying to get the reasoning, and it can simply be it's dangerous outside when it's dark, or people can take advantage of you when it's dark. So explain to them like adults, respect that they have brains that are working, respect that they have thoughts, that they have input, and that they have emotions. So explain what the behavior norms are for the school. For example, you can say no burning property to express your frustration. Find other ways to express your frustration. And if they do express these ways, accept them and have a discussion. So I would say, number one, for big children, have discussions, set standards, discuss them, and lay out the consequences of breaking those behavior norms. Once that is done, try to get the root cause of why these children are not behaving the way that you would like them to behave. Some children behave in an unacceptable manner, maybe because they're sick. Psychologically, we know of children who have oppositional defiant disorder. It's difficult for them to keep rules. Children with ADHD, it's difficult for them to keep rules. Children with autism, they may have a mild or a high functioning type of autism that allows them to actually understand the concepts in school. They're in high school, yes, they're performing, but is their brain 100% correct? So find if there is a root cause underlying, and if there is, refer them to the right people to correct them. Number 3, when they do break these rules or the behavior norms that you have set, there's space for allowing natural consequence to take place. For example, if a child, maybe you've set a norm that a child must have a sweater when they go out, and they break it intentionally or out of defiance, they say, I'm not going with a sweater. What's the natural consequence of not going with a sweater? They will feel cold. Let them feel the cold. That's the natural consequence, so that they learn naturally, if I don't put on a sweater, I'll feel cold. Let them have what is called natural consequence. That way, even when they're adults, they will know that if I don't do this, there's a natural consequence that is this. Then the other aspect we can tackle is the aspect of positive reinforcement. Most of the time, we like to focus on negative reinforcement, which is what beating is. 100% of the time, if a child makes a mistake, we are on it. We are punching them. We are abusing them. We are kicking them out. We like that. We thrive on the negative. But are there small times when the child does do something right? If there are times when the child does something right, blow that up. Make a big deal out of it. Make it so memorable for the child, such that they are inspired to do what is right. Most of the time, we never tell our children, oh, good job today, you did your homework, without me having to remind you. But the day they forget to do the homework, we are on it, beating them senseless. But the times they actually do the homework, we don't make a mention of it. So the child is like, in this family or in this house, they only notice me when I make a mistake. So let me continue making this mistake so I can get their attention. Remember, children love attention, either from parents, from teachers, from doctors, from the adult who is in the room. Children thrive on that attention, and they're not able to separate good attention from bad attention. Even you beating them, that's attention to them, and they will want it. So they'll do things intentionally out of defiance to get your attention, because they see, I will only get attention when I make a mistake. So you, as a parent or as a teacher, make the conscious decision to praise this child when they actually do the right thing. And positive reinforcement can work either by verbal cues, when you tell them, good job, you're a good boy, you did well, or it can work by tokens, especially big children, teenagers, and young adults. You can actually reward them by giving them something that they enjoy. It doesn't have to be something harmful. If money works for you, that's okay. Like if they do chores in the house and you say, if you wash dishes every day for this week, I give you 100 bob. Or you can buy them a book, or you can buy them, you can take them out for an activity that they enjoy. The third thing is usually activities. So if your child enjoys swimming, you tell them, okay, fine, you love swimming. However, I will only take you swimming if you wash dishes daily for the next 5 days. So they are motivated to actually do the right thing. And the last one is you can't do negative. Sorry. The last one is negative reinforcement, which is not beating necessarily. You can withhold privileges. If a child does something wrong, you can withhold something they love.
Wow. I think, Lillian, you've covered everything. But what I can add is discipline should not be controlling the kids. Instead, it should be teaching them how to control themselves. So if you realize that actually you're not trying to be in charge of the child's life, you're not trying to manipulate them by caning or corporal punishment. It's not an issue of controlling the children, but also teaching them how best can they express themselves. As you said, there are many strategies that they can use, that they can parent can use or teachers can use to help them get to cultivate a better decision making skills. Because what we are afraid of, or we do not want the children to experience, is making wrong decisions, and those wrong decisions have their own consequences. So use of strategy of how can you be able to empower those children to make good decisions, and those decisions comes from an information point of view. How best can you educate? I think caning is a quick fix for most parents. It is easier to cane than sit down and explain. The reason why I don't want you to come past 6 p.m. is because, one, you may encounter a dangerous. Two, you're a lady and you're more vulnerable to abuse, or you're a man and nowadays it's risky outside. Explain your fears. And I think most parents don't explain the fears. Like, I will give an example. A teenage mother has an 18-year-old, and the 18-year-old feels I should be going out, I should be hanging out with my friends, and yet it does not. He or she does not know the danger that is ahead. In that instances, I will encourage the sorry. In that instances, I would encourage the mother of a teenage to sit down with the teenager and ask, why do you prefer coming late? Or why do you come late?
Sorry, I don't know what happened. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
You're muted. Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened. But now I want to hear from you, Rachel. Spare the rod, spoil the child.
As I was saying before, your network had a mishap. I said discipline should not be about controlling the child, but instead it should be a moment of teaching the child how to control themselves. Because the instances where we have children that are misbehaving, the reason why you feel that behavior is not appropriate is because they're not able to control themselves, or they're not able, if they feel like they want to be out at night, they want to do it. Does it have repercussion? Yes. So use of strategies that will help cultivate a better decision making. And as I said, I think our currently parenting have been made so easy, like chastising, beating is an easier fix, which is not.
Yeah.
The best one is to empower that child to become a more equipped person, that even when they're making their day-to-day decisions, they are making it from a point of information and from a point of understanding, but not fear. When we use caning, we are causing them to make decisions out of fear and tremble. Like, because my father will kill me, or if they discover this is what I'm doing, this is what will happen. But does that stop them from doing the wrong thing? No. In fact, they work so hard to prevent you as a parent from knowing what they are doing. So even if we use the corporal punishment as a way of administering discipline, we are not helping. I think the best thing that we can do is to empower those children to be able to make those decisions. I was talking about a teenage parent, and in this case, a mother, who is skeptical about releasing their child to go for a sleepover or to come in late. And this is the scenario I was giving. How then could you be able to administer discipline in this instance? Have a sitting with your son, either 19, 18, 14, does not matter. As long as they are teenagers, they can reason, they can understand. And explain your fears. Why am I saying your fears? Because your fears are the ones that are driving you to push the child to stop coming late, to stop that behavior, don't hang out with so and so. And as a parent, ask yourself, what is my biggest fear? My fear is my son will be in those parties and will be introduced to drugs, while in my house, I've not talked about it. So as a parent, once you understand that is your fear, sit down and ask, how best can I educate my child of what is the difference between coffee and drugs? Why don't I administer drugs in the morning as breakfast? Explain that to the child. The reason why we do not drink alcohol, or we don't administer drugs every morning, is because these are their side effects, or these are the reason why people do this. While you address your fear, you are educating the child. Now, by the time this child gets to such circumstances, because there are peer influences, there are people who will introduce them, whether you know or you don't, they will have a reasoning as to why they should not. And that is what guides the child from doing the wrong thing, not fear. Because when you're not there, the fear is not there. You're like, you will never know. Let me see how it feels. The curiosity checks in. And at times you will say teenagers have peer influence. But I think it's because the parent did not have their influence in them. If they had their influence in terms of teaching, educating, and helping them understand what decision they need to make and the consequences of it, The other one is how you teach. You're not threatening. I think if you've been in the previous way of gospel, the way it was preached to most of
Yeah,
us, it was fire. If you
really.
don't get saved, you'll go to hell and you will burn. It was not out of love that Jesus loves you. No, I think even in discipline and nurturing, let's share this information, not out of fear that your child will get pregnant or be involved in drug addiction. Not do it out of fear. We are looking at what are your fears, but even as you're teaching them, these are the consequences. Don't do it
Mm,
to threaten. I remember there's a client of mine who told me, my mother never mentioned why I should not interact with boys. Every time she kept telling me, I don't want to see you with those boys. You will come here pregnant. But they never explain what happens. How does it happen? I wish that parents will take that initiative to explain the reason why, and especially to teenagers. Because I think the reintroduction of corporal punishment is not majorly looking at the younger age.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Primaries are not being banned. It is the
Mm,
secondaries. Why? These people or these children or these students are looking to
yes.
understand who am I. They're struggling to understand their self-awareness. But the parent did not do much in helping them understand who they are. They did much of beating, chastising, and as Dr. Recherubo was saying, abuse words. So this person have low esteem, does not understand who they are. They had dreams of becoming a doctor. Right now they're form 3, they're wondering, I think now I'm a patient, because the
Mm,
grades have deteriorated and they're not even able to tell what am I going to become.
yeah.
Is it the image of my parent I've been protecting, or is it who I am? The third thing I would say, use of another strategy that you can use to ensure discipline is adhered to, is helping the
Mm,
child get to know who they are, such that by the time they get into form 1, form 2, they're not going to compare themselves with the rest, that I'm not able to get my grades. They're able to know, this is my capability, this is my area of expertise, or this is my area that I can focus in. And also, let's not condemn children based on the standard we have set for ourselves. I always say most of the parents want to achieve what they didn't get. So
Through the
even when
time.
it comes to the standard, you should get A in maths, you should get B in maths. So you're not seeking to understand this child ability and powers within them so that you can bring forth who they are. You're trying to look for yourself inside your child. So your frustration becomes their frustration because they never get to know who they are. And you know why there is a lot of peer influence in high school or teenage children? It's because they have lost who they are or who their parents told them they should be. One, because their capability is not able, if you're not performing based on the parents' standard. Two, because no one told them, when you get here, this is what is happening. And three, there are so many changes that is happening into their body that makes them feel, am I really good enough? Am I
yeah.
what? Am I presentable? Do I look okay? My body is changing. I would have loved to be lighter more than the dark skin that I am. They are struggling with accepting who they are. Other strategies that you can use as a school or even as a parent, help the child get to know who they are and also accept who they are, not
Mm,
allowing the parent to impose what they would like their children to be. So use of other strategies will come in handy, especially for teenagers that we're having challenges in our current schools.
yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. You ladies are gems. I think the most important thing is parenting is actually empowerment of your children. And this has to happen continuously. From the way you empower a 1-year-old is not the way you're going to empower a 10-year-old and even not a 20-year-old. So it's a constant investment. And you see, people usually say parenting has no manual, but trust me, you really have to read. You really have to understand so that you're able to break the cycles that we found ourselves in. Because some of us it took so long for us to be able to understand who we really are and what we can do in this world. And imagine there are people who still are not able to even know why they are even here. So I think that's the primary role of a parent. You cannot be taught that in school. And I hope every parent will really be able to watch this and take notes and make sure they do the same for your children. Now, Rachel,
Yes.
the biggest issue has been what we're seeing, like from what is happening at our homes. most caning comes of, according to not according, but what Dr. Kerubo has just said is, like, if you tell your child something and you think they've disobeyed, quote unquote, just because they ask you why don't we do this, or I don't think that is right, automatically the parent goes into a fight mode. Okay, so how do we differentiate that from actual disobedience, and how is there a way of actually preventing disobedience based on how we parent our children from a young age?
Dr. I think if there's anything that will ask any parent to take home today, is the understanding that children grow and they keep creating boundaries. I will start with a small toddler. Before they even know how to suckle, they keep touching around. They discover they have hands. They touch their hair. They didn't know they have hair. So every day is a discovery mode. Now imagine if they never get to discover new area, meaning that person will either be a zombie or a statue. So even in discipline, the disobedient aspect comes in when the child is trying to expand their boundary and become independent, but now is being confined or restricted, which is a good thing. But into some extent, that is the same thing we say is disobedient, because it is the boundary based on whose standards? Parents' standards. So what I would ask is, actually, let's not look at it as disobedient, and also but look at it as, what boundary are we allowing our child to expand and do or grow? Are we limiting their thinking to only be confined to what we think, or are we allowing them to grow? So it's not from an aspect of total disobedience or intimidation, but it's from an aspect of curiosity and wanting to learn. Some of the adults we have today, they can never do anything beyond what they're instructed to do. Why? Their creativity was damaged when they were a child. And if this is damaged, we have, I may say, we are duplicating products. Instead of having that uniqueness that God created in each and every person coming out and serving the world, we duplicate. And we are duplicating something that is already wrong. So in disobedience, I'll first look at the parent. What are these that you feel my child has extended their boundaries? And I'll give an example of a child that is crawling within your house. You want them to use that space, true? There is a way you tell them, this is what you play with, this is what you don't play with, or this is how you use it. Now, the how is what creates fear and intimidation that this child either withholds back, does not even explore further, or they become curious to ask, Mom, can I touch this? Can I use this? A good example is use of a remote. A child is scrolling around and you feel like, hey, that will be dangerous. Maybe the TV can fall on them. The best way to do it is to ask, now, when you step on this, it will fall, if they understand. But if they don't understand, you help them understand, don't do that. That is very wrong. But you've explained. Now, in our traditional African mothers or parents, what do? We shout, stop that! What are you doing? So one, the child is even shocked and shaken. What have just happened? If you visit some of these homes, you will think we are in Al-Qaeda or those war zone, because the shouting and the expression that is normally there is chaotic. Are we instilling discipline, or we are fighting? So even by the time this child is growing to get to understand, I cannot go to those limits. It is not because they understand why. It's to stop mother or the father from shouting. Does that help them grow their broad thinking? And you always say, think outside the box. Why tell us when we are adults and you told us not to think? You were thinking on our behalf. So in disobedience, I will look it at two ways. Is it me? How I express it? There are dangerous areas that you're able to tell there is danger ahead, but you don't prevent it by shouting or quarreling or making noise. If you're dealing with an adult, explaining why it is, and as Dr. Kerubo said, at times allow the natural course to take its course. That person has come late, and the curfew has caught them wherever they are. I am so sorry. take care of yourself. If you are an adult and you are able to go on your own, take care of yourself there. But now, let me tell you a typical African mother. Hello, so ulikuwa nafikiria, let me send an ambulance. You know, we had a case where parents sent an ambulance to rescue the child. Do you think you are helping the child? So I think the people that are more disobedient are the parents, and how they are administering it. The children are trying to break away from the boundaries. Ama kale ka box that you have confined the children into. So in aspect of disobedient, the children are trying to break out, but the parent feels you're either undermining or you don't respect, or is to them having authority over or controlling you gives them power. So they feel like they're losing their own power of being parents, but that's not the way to go about it.
Okay. Dr. Kerubo, what are your thoughts on the same, disobedient?
Yes, so as Rachel has said, let us define what it means to be disobedient. To me, disobedience is intentional and deliberate defiance of a standard that had been previously set and communicated and understood. So you have to have already set a standard, and you have to have made them understand it and accept the standard. If it is not accepted, I will not obey it. Once then there is intentional, it has to be intentional. Yani alikaa akafikiria na akasema mimi leo sikuji class. Not that they were sick or they felt a little bit unwell and they didn't come, then you call that disobedience. It has to be deliberate. It has to be intentional. That means the mind was involved to decide that I will not do it. And it has to be defiant. That means in your face, like I know I'm supposed to be doing this and I'm not. Then that we can call disobedience. I would also say, as parents, I'm also a parent of 2 children. One is 6 and another one is 2. So sometimes when I talk, people say, she's too young, that's why she can say this. She doesn't have experience. No, I have experience. So as parents, let's also model good behavior. Sometimes, as Dr. Rachel has given the example, a child steals something or does a mistake. For example, I've had cases where the child, let's say the child has drugs, especially teenage boys. Nowadays, smoking weed or bang is fashionable. So you find a child has been caught smoking weed and they have been arrested. They are in the police cell. What does the mother do? They quickly pay the police bribe to get the child out. And then once the child is home, you beat the child. Now, what is that? It would have been better to leave, who is disobedient? It would have been better to leave the child to face the natural consequences of committing a crime. Until now, because you've beaten him in the house, you feel you have instilled discipline or punishment. That is not true. Let us be good models of behavior. If you want your child not to lie, then you yourself don't lie. If you want your child to follow the rules, you yourself follow the rules. We want children to follow school rules, but when we are in the car with them, driving to that school, we are the ones breaking lights. We are the ones changing lanes without indicating. We are overtaking on the left. We are, and then we tell the child, follow rules. They can't understand that. They are better imitators of action than of words. Yeah. So be a good model. If you want your child to be kind, you be kind. If you want your child to be sensitive to other people's thoughts and needs and feelings, you also do the same. Okay. And then the other thing I would say, the word discipline comes from the word disciple. And as we all know, the 12 disciples of Jesus, they were literally following Jesus. Jesus was not taking a cane at I'm disciplining my disciples. No, he was showing them the way in which they should walk. So as parents, to discipline our children is to show them the way in which they should walk. It is not to beat them when they have made a mistake. Another thing I would say is instead of focusing on what your child cannot do, focus on what your child should do or can do. For example, the example that Rachel gave of a child who is crawling and you want them to crawl in a certain space. Instead of telling them, don't go beyond this boundary, focus on what they can do. You can tell them, crawl here. Let it be a positive, channel that message in a positive way. Instead of telling your child, you cannot go outside at night. Tell them you can go outside from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Focus on the positive, present your message from a positive angle than from a negative angle. That way they're able to focus on the positive. And the last thing I would say about disobedience is as Rachel has said, let's talk to our children. And this talking should start from an early age. When your child has been brought home, suspended for burning a school, this is something that is going to be very hard to rectify when they're 16. But when they are 4 years old or 3 years old, teach them the importance of property. Let them understand that people pay to build buildings, that it costs money, time, energy, resources to have something up. So they should treasure and nourish what is around them and treat resources with respect when they are 3 or 4. That way, when they're 16 and a colleague suggests, let's burn the dome down, they're a bit hesitant. They're like, no, I knew from a young age that we respect property. So let's start early. Let's not wait until they're taking drugs to now say, hi, I need to discipline my child not to take drugs. It's a little bit too late. Start when they're 3 and teach them the importance of their bodies, why it's important to nourish their bodies with the right food and the right things. Teach them the benefit of taking healthy foods. Don't focus all the time, drugs will kill you, give you cancer, make you crazy. Tell them instead, eating fruits expands your mind and makes you great and strong and able to do that which you want them to do.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So now about the teenagers who were beaten at home and then now they're about to be beaten at school, and they are going to grow as adults who are actually broken, very fearful, cannot stand for themselves. What do we do about these kids? Rachel, starting with you. So how do we really repair these children? They are now 16, 17, 18. They were beaten at home. They were never given an opportunity to express themselves. And now they're in school, the same is happening. And of course, now they're going to be adults and they're going to be now the parents. So how do we break that cycle?
Dr. Inema, I think you would attest. The reason why we have banning of schooling, especially high school, those senior students, it's out of frustration. So if we are able to manage the frustration, then we'll have no cases of indiscipline in terms of banning of property or even violence in school. Putting into consideration your question in regard to someone who've come from a broken family where there's no respect, they are chastised or they are beaten, or even the parents fight among themselves and the children are the ones who join in or they try to separate the parents and they have come to school and they're beaten for the same. I think we are doing more damage than good. A school should be a rescue place. A school should be a place where the children are taken care of and they feel safe. More so because you're dealing with professionals that are trained to take care of children. I don't mean at home should be the unsafe place, but in instances where families have not been able to provide what child requires for a better upbringing, we are looking at a safer place where professionals are there and that is school. It's just like saying you are sick at home and when you go to the hospital, the doctors neglect you. It beats the logic why we have hospitals in the first place. So the school being a rescue place where children get knowledge, understanding emotionally, and also taken care of physically. And that's why we feed them the physical food. I would request that the government, one, look at the area of frustration. I think the frustration is coming from the exam. Don't they ban school when the exams are near? Knowing that this is life and death. If I don't pass here, my life is done. I think what I would commend the government for change of systems in education. The CBC system is really good because it's focusing on individual students and their ability and empowering them in that area. So for that, I commend the government for doing that. What happens to the students that will not experience the beauty of CBC, where it's competence based, it's not really based on national exam, and that will sort out most of the frustration that comes with students. For now, I'll recommend that each school administer to have a psychologist or a counselor to help those children that are going through traumatic experience. Their homes are devastated, and they can also give guidance. The other frustrating things is because those children do not know who they are. And here, they're almost done with the 4th year or they are just started and they don't know what future holds for them. Can we create awareness of helping those children get to know, this is Rachel, Rechael cannot sing, but Rechael can be able to work very best in mathematics. And the fact that I cannot sing or I cannot venture into a different area does not make me lesser of a being. Help them and get to go through healing in terms of their wounds. They were told they are useless when they were from their homes or whoever have abused them. Once they get to know who they are, they will guard it and they will not compete. We have groups forming to form people that will be able to, like a team, or they form groups against the administration. It's because they want to air out their frustration. Can we create channels where these children can express themselves and they are not judged or condemned? So if we have those platforms, and that can be solved by each school having a counselor or having counseling services being provided to them, having programs where the children can be helped to get to know who they are, and also can be given platform to air out their frustration. Today, as adults that are on social media, you've seen people mimic how they grew up. Like you'd say, this was my typical mother. Do you think they're laughing about it? It is so real. The reason why it is a joke is because it was the reality on the ground. Does it mean this person was not hurt? Some are even hurt even today. Let us not wait until these children get to acquire social media as a way of showing their frustration. Because for us, we were able to express our frustration through social media or comic. But for them, they may do it using drugs, they may do it by burning school, but all these are trying to air out their frustration. So in adolescence, in high school, help these children go through self-awareness. In future, the CBC may help best because it will not be focusing on who's called an A and who's called a D. And does that mean their life is terminated or that's the end of their life because they did not achieve it? No. Helping them to know they will become better. You've also had people asking questions. Why is so-and-so who used to score an A in our school? Why? Because maybe they were made to feel they are nothing and that person is. And I'm telling you, season changes. You may be the one leading today, but tomorrow things change. But does it mean the person who was behind you is not better? We are not competing. Let's not create a competition perspective about life. Yet everyone is running their own race at their own pace.
All right. Dr. Kerubo, what do we do to these children who are broken?
Yes. Number one, as Rechael has said, they are probably frustrated about something in the school. So the first thing I would suggest is let them be outside the environment that it is frustrating them. Once they are outside that environment that is frustrating them, let us talk to them. If you start by beating them or whatever the chosen form of punishment will be, you are trying to make the child to be the same as the behavior. Let's separate the child from the behavior. Instead of saying your child is an arsonist, for example, your child is a thief, or your child is a drug addict. State it this way: your child is struggling with arson, or your child is struggling with obedience, your child is struggling with drugs. That way, you are separating the child from the behavior. You are giving the child dignity, you're giving the child respect, you are recognizing that the child has potential to do better. However, at the moment, he is struggling with this current behavior. So separate the child from the environment that seems to be frustrating them. Have an honest talk with them. If you as the parent, you feel you cannot do it, maybe you're too stressed, or even you are hurting, we are not dismissing the fact that you as a parent, you're also feeling frustrated with a child who is disobeying. You're also feeling like you failed. You're also feeling shame. You're also feeling, hopeless. So if indeed you're not able to reach your child because of your own limitations, have somebody else talk to your child. Get to the root cause of why they committed that act. Let them be honest, and in an environment where they will not be judged or punished for whatever they say. If they say, I did it because I felt I would fail my exams, and once I fail, I'll go home and be beaten, address that. As the parent, tell them, whatever grade you get, you are still my child. Whatever grade you get, you can still be useful to society. You can still have something, a space in this world where you can earn a living and still be a useful member of society. Remove that fear of failure. Remove that fear that without an A, I am nothing. Once the fear is removed, then they'll be like, oh, okay. So even with a D or with an E, I'm not saying let children fail if they have better potential, but let them perform what is to their best standard as themselves, not what you have said for them. So have as honest, sincere talk with them. Let them say whatever it is they are bothering them, that is bothering them. Once they have stated it, address it. If they are lies or falsehoods that they have believed and they are not true, correct that in a loving and respectful manner. If there are issues, some of these children, you talk to them, they tell you, me, my father beats my mom at home every day. So when you tell me not to beat my colleagues or to beat the teacher, I don't get what you're talking about. Violence is how we communicate. So that's all they know. And then now if the child at home only sees violence and abuse, and then at school you expect him to be anything different, it's totally, impossible. So address what is the root cause. Usually these problems of arson, drugs, delinquency, running away from school, underperformance, whatever, the things we like to label children with and say these are the problems with your child, they're usually symptoms. They are not the disease. So just like when you go to a doctor, they don't merely treat the symptoms, but they get the disease that is causing the symptoms, get the disease that is making this child ban the school, that is making this child to beat teachers, that is making this child to rape or to commit sodomy or whatever the misdemeanor is or the challenge is. Get to the root cause. Don't just address the symptoms. If you just address the symptoms, for example, if the child is a drug addict, you may succeed in bringing them out of weed or out of cigarettes or out of alcohol, whatever they're using, but they'll find a different way to express that addiction. They may now go into sex addiction. They may now go into pornography. They may now go into perversion, sexually perverse behavior, because the problem of addiction and dependence, the mind that has decided I cannot live without this, has not been changed. It has merely changed the expression. So I would say remove the child from the environment of frustration, get the reason of frustration. If the child says, I don't like boarding schools, you might have to hear them out. And you might have to give an option of an alternative way of education. If they say, my teachers are mean to me, have a discussion with you. Even if it's not true, show the child that you actually heard it. So have a discussion with the teacher and say, my child accused you of this. Is it true? I'm just trying to get to the base, to the bottom of it. Is it true? If it is false, then what makes the child believe that? Could it be how you express yourself? Could it be how you handle him as opposed to how you handle other people? Get to the root cause and address the root cause.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. And that brings us to the end. It's past 1 hour. So as we summarize, what's your parting shot, Rachel?
If you have concern of your children's behavior, if you don't seem to, and also it doesn't seem to be responding to your discipline method, please seek help. Look for a counselor, look for a psychologist, look for a behavior
Specialist.
daktari, get the next way, or then go to the next step of getting help. Don't give up on that child, because there's an easier and a healthy way of resolving the issue, even when the issue is still young, before it even grows to something that is being hard to manage. But there's nothing hard to be managed. Start where you are. You have an adult who is not responding, come. You have a toddler who is not responding, come. Seek for help. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Kerubo?
My parting shot is know yourself and be yourself. That applies to both the parent and the child. Most of the time, as parents, we feel our role in this world is to control our children and make them live within these lines. That's not our role as parents. Our role as parents is we've been given this gift of a person who we take care of for a limited period of time and inspire them to be the best that they can be, even if that best does not necessarily agree with what we feel as parents. So know yourself and be yourself.
Thank you. So from me, remember, know yourself, know your children. Make sure you have rules at home. There has to be some operating standards at home. Do not just come up with ideas every single day. Make sure you actually have standard operating rules at home, and they should be known by everybody who's actually residing in your home. The third thing is listen to your child and actively listen to your child, not just in passing, but actively listen. Be concerned about your child's welfare. The fourth thing is address the problem. If you think you are not able to address the problem, please seek experts' advice. It's very important. Parenting is not a walk in the park. It's clearer now, I hope. Parenting is not a walk into the park. Please remember, whatever children you're bringing up today are going to be tomorrow's presidents and prime ministers and fathers and husbands. And make sure you leave someone better than yourself. So thank you so much. Before we wrap it up, I want you guys to tell us about your practices and how people can actually contact you. Dr. Kerubo, you can go first.
Yes, so Dr. Lilian Kerubo, on email, I am at lilkebz@gmail.com. For my business or my practice, you can reach me at info@diffabaclinic.co.ke. So info@diffabaclinic.co.ke. On Twitter, I'm at Marvelous Diffabilities.
Okay, wow. Mobile number?
Mobile number is 0737 195 080. 0737 195 080.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ari. Rachel?
Yes. I'm psychologist Rechael Mbugwa on all social media. And my phone number is 0728 another 28 4187. Let's go.
Okay. All right. So for everybody who's watching us, I'm going to post the contacts and the details of how you can contact Dr. Kerubo and psychologist Rechael, so that you can continue seeking expert advice as far as parenting is advised. Thank you so much for everybody who has taken their time to watch this, everybody who has commented. I just mentioned a few names: Rebecca, Zablon, Duncan Chengo, Catherine Nyoike, Samuel Mbugwa, Nancy Drew, Sheila, Jennifer Kishaga. I really appreciate. I don't take it for granted. Continue passing the word, and I hope every parent will have an opportunity to actually watch this. Please, there are so many gems in this. I wish you a beautiful morning, and bye-bye.
Bye.